Tackle today, bringing you the entire market action in under 10 minutes. Mark and Matt from Tackle Trading with you today. Lots to discuss. We're going to start with the RSP technical chart. As long as this chart stays constructive, it's risk on. Got a lot of healthy price action. Matt, what are you seeing in the technicals this morning?
Yeah, technicals looking at a fairly decent bullish day here today. RSP looking really good on the multiple time frame breakout against that 170, obviously reflecting the general market mentality here on RSP when you're going down through the indexes. You really haven't seen anything so far this week to change the technical side of the equation. You're still looking at a bullish uptrend with confirmation at this point on the Dow Jones. On the Russell 2000, you're still looking at a little bit of a consolidation pattern, waiting on that breakout against 2300. And then when you're looking at the actual S&P 500, kind of looking at the NASDAQ, very similar to that, NASDAQ's having just a really good day as you're looking at a little bit of a support build happening around that 19,000 level. Now on the NASDAQ, obviously, we're going to need to see a little bit more than just the early beginnings of a support build, but that is a good look for the recalibration of the market if the NASDAQ can stop the selling and RSP, Russell 2000, Dow Jones still maintains the viability of their technical patterns. And that's what we have seen play out so far this week. Now, we are in front of the central bank, a very, very, very major announcement that is going to have some volatility to it. And volatility is the kryptonite of technical analysis. So we're seeing consistency on what we thought was going to play out this week from a market index perspective, but we're now right in front of the central bank. And if these technical patterns still maintain their viability post central bank, as you're halfway through Hell Week here in the market this week, that's going to be a good look for the bulls moving into the future. But as of right now, when you're looking at RSP, as long as you're talking about a multiple time frame breakout against that 170 level and you're staying above 170, that is a really good breakout look from an index perspective. And so kind of playing out the way we thought it would play out this week so far, Mark. But again, that's in front of the biggest news of the week. And the biggest news of the week is coming over the next 24 to 48 hours. You got obviously ARM later on tonight. You got the Fed coming up on deck. Obviously we got labor later on this week, and we still are in front of some major earnings reports as well. But from a technical perspective, it does look like a pretty decent market right now.
Yes, it certainly does. And the Fed, we will certainly be talking about tomorrow in this segment. There's no shortage of news today, though, around the economic front. Bank of Japan, and this is a very big central bank week. Bank of Japan met. Fed meets today. Bank of England meets tomorrow. Surprising hawkish hike, raising their benchmark rate. Also announced plan to cut bond purchases. The yen, for Forex traders out there, the yen dollar chart could be a source of many trades as technicals change. Janet Yellen was out doing her part to stabilize the market chaos, having her QRA come in line with expectations. So nothing in the bond world causing and announcing a doubling of their buyback program. Other economic data, was mixed today. Unemployment data out of the ADP came in light. Chicago PMI and pending home sales beat. Mixed data on that. Biggest economic data point the rest of the week is unemployment report after the Fed meeting today. Anything to comment on here, Matt?
Just a couple of things. Number one, Janet Yellen. Anytime she is certainly
she is relentless.
A dove as you can find at the Treasury, and I think that's going to continue over the next few months at least. But in terms of the Japanese yen, Mark, a little bit of an unexpected hike on the Japanese yen. And when the Japanese are starting to hike, that kind of throws a little bit of a wrench into the analysis, quite frankly, because we don't typically have to deal with the Japanese hiking from an interest rate perspective. But here we are, and you're starting to see a lot of bid coming into the Japanese yen as you're seeing the dollar go down in a currency. When the dollar is down, that means the yen is up. And so you're seeing a pretty big sell-off on the dollar relative to the yen. And that could be compounded later on today if the Japanese are going to be increasing interest rates while the United States is getting into the moment of cutting interest rates. You're talking about the carry trade starting to become a little bit of an issue for the United States dollar. And you're starting to see that get a little bit impacted here today. And when you're sitting at 104, a major support level on the dollar going into the Fed, you could certainly line up for a little bit of firework action later on today when it comes to the currency market.
Let's get to stocks in the news. No shortage of earnings results. Matt, you are our earnings expert at Tackle Trading. You do a fabulous job. Lots to report on. Who did you select to report on today?
Yeah, there's a lot of companies out there in the market, and in the Traders Lounge every single day for Tackle Trading, we go through this stuff in great detail. Here in just an hour and a half from now, we're going to be sitting down for about an hour and a half to 2 hours with the pro members of Tackle Trading, detailing all these earnings results and detailing all that jazz. But for here, let's just do a little rapid fire. Microsoft came in with a slight beat against expectation on the EPS side of the equation. Revenue came in slightly above 15% year over year growth for Microsoft's pretty decent, but they did officially decrease revenue guidance right around 1.32%. You could say that's reaffirmed. I'm going to give it a slight decrease there. I do think that's accurate. And they did miss on the cloud, on the Azure. Microsoft down a little bit on the day. To offset that, AMD came out with a decent report. I wouldn't say it's a rock star report. Slight beat against EPS, slight beat against revenue, slight upgrade on the guidance. But on the guidance front and on the revenue front, one positive sign on AMD coming from the low point here, and AMD's up on the day so far. One point, though, is they did beat on their AI growth segment by about 105% year over year. That was a really good metric coming out of AMD, and certainly was a little bit of that data that stopped the selling behavior within technology. Moving on into some other stocks in the news here today. Arista Networks, another AI name, they came out with an 8% beat, 15% growth on the revenue side of the equation. Guidance was also slightly increased. Dayforce came out with a really impressive 27% beat. Revenue came in slightly above the expectation for 423 versus the 417. That's a 1% beat. And then they slightly increased their guidance, but you could give it the reaffirming. Now, moving out of that AI tech type of growth type areas of the market, Match.com came in with an inline report. Revenue came in about 4% year over year growth with a slight beat. They did decrease revenue guidance, but Match gapped up and looking pretty decent from a technical perspective. Pinterest came out with the beat, 20% year over year growth. That's not too shabby coming from the low point as well, although they did decrease revenue guidance just slightly, but not too concerning. And one interesting report here today that really was fascinating to me, despite the fact that it was about as boring of a boring report as you could get, was Starbucks here. They came in line 93 cents. Revenue came in slightly underneath. Revenue growth year over year. Nobody's gonna say that's a great number. Increased revenue guidance, basically 0.23%. So you're basically talking about a very, very lukewarm, boring report. But Starbucks, unlike last quarter, which basically got annihilated on their earnings, actually trying to fight up, going through a little bit of a reversal situation here on Starbucks. So when you are looking at this technically, Dayforce here gapping up, trying to hold the stabilization of their gap. Keep an eye on that 55 handle if you're looking at Dayforce. Starbucks going through a little bit of technical reversal formations with ultimate confirmation above 83. Microsoft showing a little bit of downward pressure in price following their earnings miss, but nothing too volatile or too concerning. Arista Networks actually gapped up on their positive beat. That's going to be a good thing for the tech space, and certainly part of the reason we're seeing tech outperformance here today. I feel like we're going to get a reversal here on AMD, but I think it's patience plays here on AMD. It did gap up, but it sold the gap. That's never a good look in the ultimate short term. That looks like it wants to come back down and test that double bottom and get into traditional reversal type situations. ARM does report later on today. But Pinterest and Match, they kind of stand out a little bit as well. Match gapped up, and now on the weekly chart, you're talking about a potential reversal, long-term reversal on Match playing out. $40 as an anchor point on the chart. And then on Pinterest, despite the lukewarm, earnings coming out, they just got absolutely blasted on the gap down and the sell down behavior. And now you're staring at a really important support level that you are perhaps breaking right this very second. So a tough look on Pinterest, and that's stocks in the news here for today, Chucky.
Well, listen, let's get to commodity corner. I want to talk about gold and oil for a second. We got headlines coming out of the Middle East. Israel assassinated the political leader of Hamas in Iranian territory. You've seen gold the last 2 days after different headlines start to react positively. Now, gold's been reacting positively
I was going to
to
say, it
lots of
doesn't matter
things
what
for
the
a long
headline looks like.
time. It's just one more out of the long
Any
list of
headline there.
reasons to have gold. It's going to be interesting to what the gold chart looks like at the end of the week, Matt. But one of those looks could be an all-time high here. And then break down the oil chart as well.
Yeah, we could be sniffing all-time highs here very, very soon here in the gold chart, as you do have overhead right around that 2488 level, 2475, a little bit of resistance. That's where we're kind of fighting up against on the gold chart. When it comes to oil, fighting off that low point, we obviously saw a violation of the trend line. You also saw a violation of the 200-day moving average. Mark, if you want to go back in time, this is not abnormal for oil when it's testing that 200 and when it's testing that trend line. Look at the wick we had last time, and then we V-shape recovered. This was when the OPEC basically said, we don't have your back. It broke that line, wicked underneath, and V-shape recovered. Now we're looking at a very similar technical formation. And as you can see on the long-term chart, you just got a long-term symmetrical triangle. And so if the patterns hold here, you would be thinking about oil getting back up into that 80, around 81, 82, kind of the top end of that trend line. But it's really choppy, it's really volatile, and it doesn't have a technical edge. You just have a pattern that is playing out over time that we do have some confidence on, but I would have more confidence on what's happening in the energy front than what is specifically happening in the crude oil front. And that is all we got for the tackle today, but we do have another update coming out tomorrow. And in tomorrow's update, we're going to go through the unemployment claims. Obviously, we got the central bank we're going to cover here tomorrow as well. We got ISM manufacturing data tomorrow. You got OPEC meetings tomorrow. On the earnings front, we got tier one company Meta reporting earnings tomorrow. We got tier two company ARM and Qualcomm reporting earnings tomorrow. And then when you're looking at some of those secondary important earnings reports, and there's a bunch coming out over the next 24 hours, Eaton Corporation within the industrial space, very interested in seeing how they impact industrials. And ConocoPhillips in front of ExxonMobil on Friday, they do report, and we're starting to see some good price action in the energy side of the equation. Can earnings propel that technical conversation we've been having at Tackle Trading on the energy front? That's all I got for the tackle today here today, Mark. Oh, by the way, Tackle 25 stocks reporting earnings tomorrow, MGM and AR in the energy front as well. Why don't you send us out?
Yeah, give us a like, give us a share, help us spread the good word. We would really, really appreciate it. And then if you are interested in becoming part of what I think is the best community in the world, go to tackletrading.com, go to sign up for a 15-day free trial. Come join us on the Traders Lounge every day there. See what all the fuss is about.